Welcome to the Better Automation podcast by PROCESIO, where we address one of the biggest challenges business face today, wasting time and resources on repetitive manual tasks. Our goal with this show is simple: to show you how smarter automation can free up your time, save money, and let you and your team focus on what truly matters. I'm your host, Daniel. And as promised to our listeners, we will have monthly podcasts with Marian Voicu, the co founder and Deputy CEO of PROCESIO. Each month, Marian will share his expertise, insights, and practical advice on smarter automation. Marian, welcome.
Thank you, Daniel. Well said, Daniel. Well said.
Great. So let's start. Marian, we all know that you describe yourself as a builder. So I want to learn more about this builder mindset, your builder mindset, and how does your builder mindset guides Procesio to solve real world problems?
Yep. Yes, builder mindset. I am a builder. And as a proof, I'm building, even right now, I'm building a custom watch for Procesio. Let me show it to you. So by building, I'm building every time.
Nice.
So
Nice.
the builder mindset is something in our core, in our Procesio DNA. Is something that also our team has. Actually, if it start with myself, or it started with our co-founder Mihai, but I rather say that our team evolved with this mindset, and we are building our Procesio technology. We are building the future of automation, and we are building outcomes for our customers and partners with our technology.
So I like this comparison. You've built a watch from scratch basically, and you take the same approach when building Procesio. You take piece by piece and develop the technology piece by piece and develop the solutions for your clients.
Exactly so. And you said it well, Daniel. We are building Procesio piece by piece, but not out of nowhere. We are building it out of our customers and users' feedback. And I would say that more than 80% of Procesio today evolve just from users and client feedback. Yes, we started with an idea. We researched on that idea. We validated the idea. We had the customers' interviews and users' interviews, exploratory discussions prior to writing any line of code in Procesio. But on top of that, we also evolved our technology based on what we've learned from our users and clients, and still doing so.
I think that's the best approach in business. This client-centric approach gets you where you want to go in the long run, and the best companies always have this client-centric approach. So, having this client-centric approach in mind, considering the builder mindset of you and the entire Procesio team, I want to ask you what would you say it's one of the most creative or unconventional out of the box automation solutions that you've built using Procesio? If you can share
Um,
with us an example.
mhm, mhm. So most of our use cases or implementation are the creative, are the build fast. But I recall right now a case like 2 years ago, I would say, when our client Takko Fashion reached out to us discussing an e-invoice integration, but also building an actual invoicing application for them. And we did that. We built a front end and application on top of Procesio, but that's not the thing that I want to emphasize. Is something else. When we've been discussing with Takko Fashion IT representative from Germany, they've asked, "Hey, we get it. You have a technology, a cool technology, but we need APIs. We have our own database. We will not give you access to it or any other APIs. We will not open the information and the path to our data. But we get it that you need data about the products that we are selling, and in order for us to provide you the data, we need an endpoint, an API endpoint, to send you the payload of the product data structure, and also frequently, periodically, to send you the product details." And what actually Mihai was in that discussion, what Mihai did, he said like this: "Okay, wait 1 minute," and open Procesio, created a new process, just link start and stop actions. So didn't build anything, just created and saved a valid process, just link start and stop. And that was an API endpoint. Why? Because in Procesio, any process, it's an API endpoint. And Mihai just provided with copy paste from his internal notes to the IT representative of Taco, the way to connect to our endpoint. And they tested in 5 minutes an API endpoint connection. So that was mind blowing for the IT personnel. It was like an aha moment for them, and that is why I want to emphasize on this.
Wow. Just for people who don't know what e-invoice is, a little bit of context. What is e-invoice? Because there are a lot of companies.
Yep.
Actually, all the companies need to comply with this system. Every business, every people involved in business know this, and maybe there are some, I don't know, technical people who just need to deliver the solution, but they just don't know the business aspects related to the e-invoice system.
Yep. So basically, e-invoice, it's an European regulation that says that all the companies inside countries needs to send their financial data to a regulatory body, and all the countries should comply to this. So most of the European countries started to comply and to build their own e-invoice systems based on the European architecture, and also implied to the companies inside their countries to comply and to send their financial and invoicing data to those digital systems and their e-invoice APIs. Make
Thank
sense?
you for
Simple enough,
yes,
or should we
yes,
try
no, thank you, thank
simplify
you,
it more?
thank you for clarifying this. Um, I want to ask you one more thing about this e-invoice system. And it's in the context of a big company, in the context of a large enterprise. So why would be so important for a big enterprise to work with a company like Procesio,
Mhm.
and why does Procesio saves them and helps them automate, saves them a lot of time and money by automating this complex process?
Yep, makes sense. You asking that because this is something that we've done since the e-invoice regulations. So an enterprise company has their own internal legacy systems that are big and complex. They cannot change those systems soon fast enough to adapt and to comply to these regulations. And here is where a solution like Procesio, but not just the Procesio technology, but also Procesio as a consultant, I would say, and our implementation partners comes at hand into navigating this context of understanding what can be done with the enterprise context, uh, how the data can be extracted from those systems. Is there a way to connect via API, via database? If it's not, there is another way, any other way to take the data, like exporting a CSV or an XLS, or even taking the invoices and find a way to take the data out of those invoices. And this is where we help the enterprise companies understand their context and find the fastest suitable solution for their context. Because those regulations like invoice or other e-transport or any other regulations are implied, has fast deadlines and close deadlines, and most of the companies don't have enough internal bandwidth to or budgets to adapt big internal systems like SAP, I would say, um, and adapt it fast enough to comply with those regulations. And they need, let's say, an augmentation layer that is capable to connect to their context. I'm not saying to connect to their system. This might be the first approach, to connect to the system, but most of the time that's hard. It takes time for IT procedures and approvals. I'm saying connect to their context, because we have other approaches. We try to understand where and how we can take the data and help them send it to that regulatory body that implies the data to be sent.
So you mentioned those deadlines, those very tight deadlines, and the need to comply with the regulatory bodies. And I know this is super important for any type of enterprise. And I want to ask you, can you share a real world example where you helped a client to respect a critical deadline? How did you manage to do this?
I would say that most of our customers uh, revolving around revolving e-invoice or e-transportation or regulatory aspects had strict deadlines and needed to comply fast. I can mention companies like DHL that needed to comply with e-transportation regulation, and we built an entire e-transport hub for DHL using Procesio. I will mention companies like Siemens Healthineers or Schneider or Salesia, Nair, MedLife, and so forth, that needed to comply, some of them with the invoice, like in half a month or maximum 1 month from our initial discussion. They needed to comply, and we they didn't have a solution with 1 or 2 months prior to that deadline, and we were kind of the only way for them to adapt fast enough. Why? Because we have been building and looking at those regulations, and made our research and prepared some predefined connectors to those invoice systems. And with us, they just needed to find a way to access their data, and we adapted fast the data and move it towards those regulatory bodies.
Now, that's not that easy. It's easier to said than done. But
We
I know you.
simplify it. Of course, it's complex, it's tough. There is a huge job of understanding and you've been hearing me saying a lot, understanding, understanding, understanding. And why is that? Because at our core, we feel and know that we need to understand the context prior to develop any automation. So that's why understanding is important, uh, and we do a really good job at understanding. And on top of that, our the technology help us deliver quite fast.
Yes, understanding the context. I know that this is some sort of a mantra that you and the entire Procesio team has. I know you work mainly with enterprises. You understand their context. You understand their pains, their challenges. You understand their needs and desires. And I'm very curious. What was a specific feedback you received from one of your clients that made you think? Uh, I don't know. This is the reason that we've built Procesio. What was that
Hmm.
great feedback? If you can share an
So,
example. I know you have many, but I'm just curious.
of course, interesting. I would say really good question, Daniel. Of course, we have feedback and we ask for feedback. But there is something else that made and makes me say uh, this is the reason for which we are building Procession, and it's not a feedback, a direct feedback. It's an implied one, and I would say is the moment when we are looking and speaking with our the partners, our clients, and seeing them smile. So by seeing them smiling when interacting with us, like you are smiling right now, right? You are a partner, you are smiling. So this is what makes me say this is the reason we are doing this. Seeing us and our partners and clients smile when we are interacting.
Wow, that's deep, and that's deep, and I can resonate 100% to this. I can truly resonate with this. Um, so getting back now for a little bit to the technical part, I have one more question. You mentioned something about the legacy systems before, and I know that's
Mhm.
such a big pain for an enterprise. They have a lot of legacy systems. It's so difficult for them to integrate with other solutions, to be compliant with a lot of regulatory bodies. um, how does Procesio simplify this integration, this connection of the legacy systems with other tools, with other external systems?
It's simple by adapting. We adapt to their context. After understanding, right? We understand and adapt. And usually, enterprise systems might have or not an API connection or a database connection. But even when they have such a connection, they might not provide it in time to have access to an SAP on an enterprise company. Might take months, even years, who knows. So it takes a lot. So this is where a technology like Procesio helps by not limiting to direct connector, like just an API connector to SAP. No, because some companies might not have that connection, and we adapt. We can provide access or adapt to accessing their data, their enterprise data, via, let's say, files that can be stored in a secure FTP, or via taking export of data, an Excel export of data, or even ingesting documents that are being sent as attachments via email. So we adapt to the context, and this is uh, how the enterprise companies can use mostly Procesio to be flexible and to adapt in time to those regulation and regulatory body aspects.
Mhm. You also mentioned that everything you build, it's related to your customers, your users, and you always integrate their feedback.
Yep.
I'm curious, what was the most or one of the most significant improvements that you made on Procesio based on your users, your clients' feedback?
So it's hard for me to mention one. Why? Because I would say more than 80% uh, of Procesio evolved from clients and user feedback. So I would say Procesio, the entire technology, it's something that evolved from clients' feedback, and it revolves around our clients and users. So it's not just a feature. So the entire technology adapts, and we are adapting it.
So, understanding the context, adaptability, flexibility, and everything you're building is based on client feedback.
Yes.
Mhm. Wow. Continuing on this idea, having in mind this enterprise implementation, having in mind that the fact that you working with enterprise, it's not that easy. So I know that you're making it sound easy, but I'm sure it's not easy. So
No,
continuing,
it's easy. Not.
I know that you make it easy for them, but in the
Yep.
background, I know that it's a lot of hard work. I know you have to work so hard to make it simple. So it's
Yes.
simple for your clients, but you needed to work so hard, and you're still working very hard to make it easy. Having this in mind, you always try to simplify things for your clients.
Yep.
Uh, how do you manage this simplicity in implementation? Because some people might think, okay, it's so simple to implement it. Will it be robust enough to help me develop the business, to help me truly automate the workflows and have a better business? So if a client comes to you and you tell them, Here is the process, this is what we need to do," it's so simple. But how do you ensure that it's also robust enough to handle everything they need?
Got it. So usually when we are discussing with enterprise people. They are business people, and we are discussing on their context. We are simplifying on their understanding, and they need the job done, and they need to assure that their partner is suited for the context. Of course, our previous experience, it's a trust mark. So we have proven a record of what we've done, where our technology or where our Processio TNG were used. For example, Processio stays in between complex systems in energy and their regulatory body on the energy side. So by showcasing what we've done, we explain them and assure them that the technology is robust enough to intake a huge load of data and also adapt fast. And we can prove it, as I told you previously, with Takko Fashion. We proved them in 1 minute that we could provide an API endpoint for them to send the data payload. So our technology allows us to cover those concerns for our the clients. Make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. And I want to ask you if you can share with me. I know, I know that you first you discuss with the business people, uh,
Yes.
with the maybe with the CEO, maybe with some CFOs, CIOs, and then you also discuss with technical people. I'm not technical, but I'm sure that there will be a lot of technical people
Mm-hmm.
who will listen to this. So let's imagine that I am a technical people. I'm a developer. Maybe I'm the CTO, or I don't know, the
Yes.
one that needs to use Procesio. So maybe we can take this example of Takko Fashion. From a business perspective, I think it's clear enough what was the process. But can you explain to us the process in technical terms? So technically speaking, what was how was the implementation?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can share with us the technical process, I think this will be very relevant for a technical person also.
Okay, so you're saying to explain our process, let's say after the commitment on a project, how we deliver. And I would say that this is not just for technical people. We simplify it enough to be easily understood by business people. And it looks like this. So, of course, it starts with pre-commitment, uh, pre the commitment phase, when our business people discuss with the clients' business people and act more like consultants. So even though we don't have a contract, let's say, signed yet with a client or a prospect, we are consultants. We try to understand them uh, in order to provide them the suited approach for their context and also a suited offer for their context. So we understand them. We are a consultant, and after we commit with a project, we align in a kickoff meeting, aligning the Procesio internal implementation team and also the business team that took care of the project commercial aspects. From the client side, it depends. Uh, Usually, we might discuss only with business people or business technologists. The business technologists are the people around business that know systems, can adapt, but are not, let's say, IT or development uh, people. Sometimes enterprise companies brings into discussion technical IT people just to discuss on, let's say, security assessments or the finding a way to access data, like was the Takko Fashion question context. Um, but further on, after the kickoff, we align on two direction. One is with the, I would say, business product owners on the delivering the project. But this is more on the analysis phase. We usually have a first, not usually, every time we have an analysis phase. So understanding, we have an analysis phase where we are discussing with the stakeholders of the client, business or technical. After this analysis phase, we try to not bother them. It- just that if it's really really important, we will ask them for something, but we tend to stick to the analysis phase to take all the information, and after that we leave them out of the pressure and deliver autonomously. After we delivered, of course, we had the internal test and so forth. We will have we have a go live meeting, aligning with the key stakeholders from the clients, the business or the technical ones. Launch the product, entering in a I would say hypercare phase. We are looking closely with what happened with the implementation or automation and adjust fast if something needs to be adapted. But mostly, we are trying to not put pressure on internal company, enterprise company teams, business or IT. So this is our value prop. We understand and we do it as autonomously as possible.
So basically, the IT department doesn't need to do much. Doesn't They don't need to code. They don't need to get involved in, I don't know,
No.
complex technical tasks. You just ask for them. I need access to this database. Give me the documents via email. Just give me the data, and that's it. That's the task that the IT department needs to do. You just take care of everything else.
Yes, simply put, yes, kind of like that.
Mhm. um, I'm curious, working with so many companies in so many verticals, so many industries, what's a surprising use case for Procesio? I know you have a lot of implementations in a lot of industries, a lot of use cases, but what's the most surprising use case you discovered for Procesio?
Of course, we have a lot. I will not say that I have only one surprising, but there are a few. I will mention now, let's say, Louis Vuitton e-transport project, where they were a bit on the edge with the deadline, and they needed a solution like yesterday, of course. um, and we did it in 3 days. So imagine integrating an enterprise company with e-transport regulatory system in 3 days, and it was like a fast and quick success. And we helped them with this pain of reaching the deadline, and might implied some financial risk. So this is something I want to mention. So implementing uh, in 3 days for Louis Vuitton, and how we did that. At that point, when Louis Vuitton approached us, we already had an e-transport hub that we still have it right now. Actually, our in our e-transport hub, we even provided self-service for free for the small medium companies, but that's a discussion for another day or later on. But back to the Louis Vuitton case, we had this e-transport hub core, and we provided to Louis Vuitton like plug and play, and they adapted fast to our, let's say, default implementation, and that was the way we provided fast. And I would say that in those 3 days, mostly were discussion and alignments, not technical implementation. It was mostly plug and play. It took more just to connect to the regulatory body on e-transportation side, and to create on their own some tokens needed to access their account, I would say.
Wow, automation, enterprise automation, plug and play. Now that's powerful.
Of course, on the
That
on the
that's
first
powerful.
phase, on, let's say, on an edge case, when we needed fast, but later on that integration was adapted to their context. So we provided something quite fast, and after that, adapted to the context, made it most more autonomous, I would say.
Mhm. But please share with us their context, because they were in such a big problem. It's very important. You implemented in 3 days, but if you want and if you can, please. I know the context. It would be very relevant to share their context about their trucks and what was
If
the
you
context.
know the context, I want you to say the context, and I challenge you to say, please, let me
So
hear
the
the context.
So the context, I know the context from Mihai. Their context was that they had a lot of trucks that were waiting in the customs, and they were unable. Basically, they had people, they had drivers that they were stuck in those trucks, and they needed this automation fast so they could allow their people to go through the customs. So it was a really edge case, a really edge scenario. So
Indeed. So imagine like a lot of trucks full of, let's say, Dior, what other beauty products that might be altered during the weather condition and so forth. So it was quite important, and the risk of losing money was huge, and the amount to you can imagine the amount of cash that can be lost during this context. But I liked how you explained it. So let's change the roles. Let me ask the question, and you should answer the procedure and say the procedure story.
Okay, we can try this. We can try this. I want you to. I can tell you something, but then I want you to continue on this idea. Tell me about the Procesio as a software development technology. I
Mhm.
know that this is the future as you see it, and I know Procesio has the power to do this. I can explain it, but I want to learn it from you. I want you to hear you say it because this is so important. So, what does Procesio as a software development technology means?
Yep. Great question again. So this is something that I feel is not used enough as a use case for Procession. Using it as a software development approach. So it's more like a software development language, I would say. Why? Because Procesio, yes, we are speaking about being an automation technology. It can be an integration platform as a service. It can be used to do ETL, which means extract, transform, load, and so forth. But basically, it is a visual software development and execution environment. So what you build with Procesio, it's software and it's already executed and already have infrastructure as a service, so you don't need to bother with building scalable backends, building scalable infrastructure, building microservice based backend, because that's Procesio on its own, and we are providing it as a service for software developers. But you need to be a software developer that wants to deliver outcomes, not just writing code, like just writing C sharp, just writing Python, Node.js, and so forth. And one thing that I'm seeing is that those developers that want just to write C sharp and Python and so forth don't know that Processor is it is no code, it is low code, but it's also full code. And for me, those are just approaches to deliver software. Even though it is no code, you still need to be technical to use Processio, because Processio is for enterprise grade automation and software, and you still need to know what you are doing. So it is not for citizen developer; it's more for technical people. And those technical people that are writing C sharp and Python, most of them don't care about technology like Processio, or some of them, but they don't know that in Processio you can also write C sharp and Node.js and Python, because we provide those approaches. Uh, because as we are being already discussing, Daniel, Processio, it's robust, it's flexible, it's intended to unify this world of business with the world of technical people into delivering software and outcomes revolving around software fast, quite fast. So this is something that I want to and wish to see as a use case more and more for the Processio.
So that to me sounds like you've built an ecosystem for software developers. This
Mhm.
is my understanding of what you just said. You've
Yes.
built the exact platform, but it's not just the platform, it's an entire ecosystem where the most skilled programmers, the most skilled developers can use it to the maximum, because
Yes.
uh, low code and no code are okay, are good, but if you have an edge scenario, if you have a super specific case, you need custom code and you still
Exactly
need to
so.
code. But you have the Procesio ecosystem that allows you to build maybe 70% of the solution much faster, and then you invest your time to build the remaining 30%, the customer, to customize the solution. Now
Exactly
that's
so.
truly powerful. Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
um, uh, Even though there are a lot of big enterprises, even let's take, I don't know, let's take an example of a big enterprise. Even though it's big, some of them, they are still using manual processes. Some of them, they are still reluctant to do this, to automate their workflows. And for an enterprise who still use manual processes, what's the first step you would recommend to start automating?
Mm-hmm.
What's the first thing they should start to automate? Even though they are reluctant, they don't trust, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, external providers.
Do you remember what I've been saying since we started the discussion? Say one word.
Context, understanding the context.
Two. So understanding context, understanding the context. So this is what I recommend in any case, any scenario, even for the enterprises that still have a lot of manual processes. Try to understand your own context. Take a step back, and you need to do that, and do it fast because the world is evolving, and you need to keep up with this evolution. Otherwise, you will be left behind. So take a step back, understand your context, make an analysis of it, map your internal processes, uh, catalogate your index and catalogate your processes based on, let's say, um, time spent, based on risk implied with those processes. And by doing so, you'll have a way to understand and to say which one of your manual processes it's important to, let's say, reduce time or money implied. If you are spending a lot of time on some processes might be inefficient, you can save time by automating. Some of the processes might imply some risks that you might not want to take uh, when you are having manual work on those, because we all know, and it's statistic, I'm not saying this, but on my own, it's something that the world is saying. When you have human in the loop on some aspects where you need to process data, a lot of data, um, the risk is huge for having mistakes. So you don't want mistakes when you are speaking about risky situation. Or on the other hand, you might have processes where it's important to not fully automate. So you might want to integrate data, you want to automate to some extent. But at some point, you want a human in the loop to make validation on something. So this is also something that you can and should do. I'm just exposing right now an approach that you can take into understanding your the processes. And after you understand the processes, you can say which one is inefficient and can be or not automated. Make sense?
Mhm. Yes, it makes sense. So there's no one size fits all when you're talking about enterprise automation.
No, no.
No one size fits all. Mhm. We are approaching the end of the show, and I have one more question before we finish. I want to ask you, what is the proudest moment so far in your journey with Procesio?
So the proudest moment. Actually, it happened recently when we had our annual Christmas party, and we brought together our colleagues, but also our partners and clients. And by seeing all of them interacting, feeling good together, smiling, this is something that made me so proud, and made me say, this is why we are doing this. Seeing all those people around us interacting and smiling, this is important because we can interact, but there can be tension. But no, seeing them uh, interact with joy and smiling, that's the proudest moment for me.
I can relate to this. I was present to that party, and it was a great party. And also the atmosphere, the energy was great. Amazing, amazing way to finish the year. So congratulations
Indeed.
on everything you've achieved so far. It's a pleasure having you again. We will continue. We will continue with these meetings. We will have these monthly meetings. I will squeeze you and Mihai
Oh
like
no,
lemon. I will.
lemon squeeze.
Yes, this is exactly what my goal is, to take all the information from you, to ask you all the relevant questions about the relevant things you are doing with Procesio, and let people know about this, because this is very
Mhm.
important. And yes, I'm happy with what we've had today. Before we finish, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to say thank you, Daniel, for being part of our journey.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you. See you next
Wait,
month.
let's have a five. One,
Ah.
five. Let's have a five.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Marian.
Daniel.
See you next time.